So, welcome to Know This, the podcast that celebrates no shame and struggle. Today, we are part 2 with Kayya and Wrigley. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming back.
Yep.
We had a lot to unpack last time, didn't we? So, today, we're going to unpack a little bit further, go into some of the subjects that we went into last time and just develop. I know that there's a few subjects that you've both got under your sleeve that we want to talk about today. So, I look forward to doing that. Kayya, I know you've come in with some, you've come prepared today. So, what are the sort of extensions of the last conversation that you wanted to dig into today?
Off the back of what we were talking about last time, we talked a lot about how we need to prioritise the home, the family structure. I would like to talk about that in relation to community building and how do we balance the importance of being in community and how do we relearn to be in community alongside prioritising our own individual family structure? Like, how do we find that balance point? I also like to talk about quote-unquote alternative relating styles and family dynamics. And also, we kind of rounded off saying, or maybe towards the end, we were saying we just need to do that collective work. Like, what exactly is that collective work?
Okay, amazing.
What does that look like?
Okay, good, thank you. And Wrigley, after the conversation last time, I know we was getting into quite a few different things, but what would you say would follow on from that? Like, what would you like to cover?
Probably delve a bit deeper into how history affects the present day.
Okay.
On a short-term level and long-term level and individually and collectively, and just how it ties into our current circumstances and conditions.
Okay, amazing. You do a lot of reading, don't you?
Yeah, over the last few years.
Yeah. Is it mainly historical stuff that you read, or is it?
Yeah, a lot of historical stuff, yeah. Historical stuff, like self-help. I love self-help books. A few like biology, health type books. Those are the main topics that I'm into.
And do you see what, from the sort of literature that you read in that is historical, do you see patterns that feed into sort of how we're living today?
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
Anything that stood out?
Just like what we was talking about in regards to black people and slavery and family dynamics and how the family dynamics today correlate with what we was put through during slavery.
Okay.
So I find that fascinating that it's just almost, it correlates perfectly. So I'd like to dig further into that and see what you two's take.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, I mean, go for it. I think we can start there because I've always been quite traumatised by looking into anything to do with slavery. I find it traumatic, so I don't generally engage with stuff that will tell me about it. So I'm more of like blocking it out, that ignorance is bliss kind of thing. So I mean, if you can share something and ask us, ask what our thoughts are, then yeah. But I know for me, because it was taught in school and I was like one of 6 black children in my year, I felt a little bit like, why are you teaching me this? Are you trying to belittle me? Are you trying to make me feel somewhat inferior? Because obviously there's the other side to black history, which is a lot different. Yeah. And that's the side that I want to know.
We don't learn about the riches pre-slavery. We're taught that black history started at slavery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've always just found that a little bit problematic. So I think for me, what you're saying is the truth. And I know that and I can feel that. But I want to be like, okay, so how do we go back to pre that time and how do we rebuild? I guess it's strength, because what you were saying about them sort of taking down maybe the strongest one in front of their family.
Yes.
All of that, I think, really ties into how society is now. It's like women are dependent on quite heavily on the government.
Yes.
And I feel like that's by design. I feel like it's a construct. But based on the way that masculinity has kind of changed over the years, it's like, okay, well, what are women supposed to do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a
Well, again, I think it's
complex.
that like kind of trying to deconstruct it all enough to see everything separately so we can bring it all back together. So understanding the importance of feminine energy and masculine energy, like what are they? Like, how do we identify them? Like, what are their values, their purposes? I think if we strip it back to that, we'll see that the man or the woman will never be more important than the other. Like, the balance will always be required and it will always be present whether we're aware of it or not. So I just think what we was talking about in part one was the way the masculine and feminine got kind of like bewildered strategically for us to like lose our family identity so we're easy to control, and the woman become the more defensive kind of hard when she was supposed to be the opposite of that, and the man become more psychologically and mentally just a bit in himself and not standing his ground. So also the woman was made to rely on the white man, the colonizer, the slave master, which would in today's time be the government, as you're saying. So that's the equivalent of relying on the government as opposed to relying on the father. So now in the modern day, we're more accustomed to just be like, all right, we'll go our separate ways, we can't see eye to eye. Whereas I feel like before these times, we'd never do that. That would be like a death sentence. So it would have to be life or death to make us make that decision. Now it can just be like, you're just not meeting my criteria, so let's go our separate ways. I'm going to lean on this and you just do whatever you please. And I think that's a little bit strategic as well, the way the government have kind of brought that into play.
Yeah, engineered it.
Yeah. With the whole... what's the term? You know when they brought in the laws where you can just get divorces for any reason. I think it was in the 70s. I think it was. So before that, you couldn't just get a divorce. There had to be reason. I think it's called might be called no fault. I can't remember. I'd have to double check. But they've just made it very easy to decide to split up with each other.
Right.
So then I think if we looked into the black communities, we'd see that we have a disproportionate amount of broken homes. Right. And I don't think that's coincidental at all. I think it stems from the whole slavery thing. Not why it's happening, because it happens to all different people, but why it's happening to us so disproportionately and how we've normalised it and we've borderline glorified it. Right. Before it became popular on the internet that, to men talking about masculine, women talking about feminine. Before all of this, I remember a lot of people from the black communities would say, Happy Father's Day, Mum. Like glorifying it, like acting like that's something to be proud of, when that creates a lot of confusion. Yeah. And then it leads to what we were saying before we've come on the mic and the camera. We was talking about relationship breakdowns and the type of people we're attracted to due to our relationship or lack of relationship with mum, lack of relationship with father. That determines what you're attracted to, what you're repulsed by, what you attract into your life. So that's what I kind of wanted to ask you, is like, what's your take on that? And as I've presented that, does it relate? Do you relate to it?
I do, yeah. I mean, for me, I've looked back and I didn't used to actually be attracted to black men.
Yeah, me neither. I remember a point where I said that, and I think back to that moment when I said that to a friend in conversation, and like a lot of shame kind of came up for thinking that way. But I was young then, like late teens, I think. Yeah, late teens. But then now knowing what I know and understanding kind of like the trauma that has led to both my trauma and trauma of a lot of black men that had led to that repulsion, because of the behaviours that I'd observed in my life. Now I like that shame has dissipated, but it's knowing that it's still so prevalent in a lot of the world, like that kind of like mindset.
I didn't realise. I wasn't conscious of it. I wasn't thinking, I don't like black men. But I look back at the guys that was trying to, be around me when I was 16, 17. And I was just like, there was no reason I'm saying no, besides the fact that I kind of associated being black with, I guess, being ghetto.
Okay.
And I went to this, obviously, you know, I went to that private school. It was all white guys at school, mainly. And obviously what you see on the TV, I think that's another element of things, like the beauty standards as well, and who you've got crushes on, who they sell posters of, and all of that kind of thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't really representative, but as time's gone on, I think learning about what you're saying about the traumas and the things that have led us to where we are as a collective, for me it's become really important. Like black love has become important because it's not represented enough. It's sacred in a different kind of way, because I feel that it is a target. If there was more black love like happening, I feel like we would be stronger in general, but I think it kind of goes back to the point of race being an issue, as in black men are more likely to sort of go outside of their race as well. And I think that played a part in like my interest in men, because I didn't see black guys as trustworthy. I feel like, oh, I'm going to get hurt by them, they're going to cheat on me, and then there's all of that coming up when I really deep it. But then on the other hand, it's like, okay, if a white male is coming towards me and he seems interested in the fact that I'm black, I think you're obsessed with black girls. Can't trust you because you want any black girl. So it's been like, you know what I mean? Obviously, I've got trust issues, clearly. That's what it is. But
so where do you think that stems from? So when you say like there's a lack of black love, where do you think that stems from? Like where you're up to now, or where you used to be up to? Like where did it? Why?
I feel like from what I've seen, so my dad started off with a full black woman, like fully black. As time went on, my mum's mixed race. He went with my mum, who's mixed race. Then he ended up with a white lady. So he's gone along that spectrum and had children. And I think just seeing how the mixed race segment of my siblings treat blackness, it's like they're not identifying with being black or white. They're kind of this like superior in the middle kind of race, if you know what I mean. Like over time, I feel like being mixed race has become better than it was, because it's not like
there's the whole concept of colorism and how, you know, we have certain privileges because of our light skin and our hair texture.
There's obviously still things like you posted something the other day that I was like, oh, okay. It was about...
it's like you're living on a bridge. Have you finished saying what you were saying?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just like...
There's a lot that I want, and I might need to backtrack a little bit to what you were saying, because I have a lot to respond to there as well. So I think there's a lot of layers to the conversation about women relying on the government or the white man, you know, when it comes... And then the whole ease of separation, because, you know, I think it's important that we look at, while that is kind of problematic, how easy it is for women to kind of just be like, okay, this dynamic's not working for me. Let me kind of like, you go over there. Let me, like the relationships between the parents. People forget to prioritize, like, you know, what's best for the kid or the kids. You know, it's like, oh, I don't like this about you. This dynamic romantically or whatever, or in parenthood isn't working. And it's easy for people, whether it's like the father or the mother initiating the breakup, to let your own personal issues between you come above, you know, what we prioritise in the child. And a lot of people forget that, you know, if it doesn't work romantically, or like if that partner is not a good partner, it can still be a good parent, you know. But there's a lot of people just be like, no, between us it's not good, so go away. And there is a lot of government support for single parents, you know, especially if you have like, you know, like health issues as well. So it's easy to become dependent on that. And while for me that's been a benefit, it's called benefits for a reason, I guess.
I was thinking about that the other day.
It's called benefits for a reason because, as we were saying in the last episode, like I've been able to really give back my time to my daughter and be fully present for my daughter and go through the recovery that I need to go through. But I think it's also, while it's easy and people are just doing it kind of very unconsciously a lot of the time, although there might be reasons, we have to look at the roots of a lot of it is down to abuse, and then we can dig deeper back to what you were saying about slavery and how, like that whole dynamic in, demasculating the male and all the generational trauma that has led to the prevalence and like the scale of abusive men, especially abusive black men towards black women. That's led to how many black single mothers there are. I think that's a really important thing to consider.
Yes.
When having this conversation about single parenthood and, prioritising the family dynamic, because as we've spoken about a little bit, on overlight messaging, men need to be held accountable for recognising their own generational trauma rather than just letting it project out onto the people closest to them in their lives, often their partners, often their kids, and that's often forgotten about. It's like, well, I'm this kid's father, so I have this entitlement, but if you are unable to show a basic level of respect and consistency to your partner and therefore to the child, like what really can you teach the child if you're not able to do that as a bare minimum? That's always my question, like where is that line, where it's like it can be a difficult dynamic between the parents, which is obviously not going to teach the kids, it's not going to be a fully healthy environment. But I believe you can have that some level of toxicity between the parents, but there can still be a mutual support and consistency for the kid.
Yes.
But then at the same time, like if there's disrespect to the parent, I think that's like the foundation of what you're teaching that kid is like the respect that you show each other in front of them, or even like not even in front of them. It's like kids pick up on all this stuff energetically. But I know that's arguable. Like do you believe there can be that kind of like toxicity and disrespect and abuse from parent to parent, whichever way it's going, and for that abusive parent to should that parent still be allowed access to their child? Like where is the line?
Well, I think that first off, I think nothing starts and nothing ends. We're just part of a cycle. So if we look at it as though things started, we can start at the toxic man. But then I'd question, what is the making of the toxic man? How does he get made? He doesn't just appear here toxic. What made him toxic?
It's trauma, personal and generational. I think
that's
it all
what I'm
roots
saying.
back
So
to that.
I feel like it's the same similar dynamics that create the toxic man that leads to him being discarded from his family. So it's like, how many of these men that are toxic are from healthy mum, healthy father, healthy family dynamic?
Very small amount.
Exactly. So then, to me, I wouldn't start like the analysis on just the toxic man. It would be what is the, again, deconstruction, like take it all apart. What is the making of the healthy man and what is the making of the toxic man?
Yeah, how does it
and
become
then again,
polluted?
that's going to point to the importance of family dynamic again. Then moving on to the toxicity, this is within reason, and I have to be careful talking about this, but it's like the way your immune system works. You need some badness to activate it. Now that can sound crazy,
Stress
but they
is good for the
always
body,
need, if a child grows up and he's seen no toxicity, he's going to have no resistance to it, he or she, sorry, is going to have no resistance to it, no tolerance for it, etc., etc. But that's not me implying that just blind all the toxicity, not at all. It's a big problem, and eventually it will become more detrimental than it was worth. So I'm totally understanding where you're coming from, but also the children need to experience and witness negativity to become tolerant to it and to have some kind of resistance to it. So I say a lot of parents have stole their children's struggle away from them. And it's like, that struggle was mine. That was going to help me become who I needed to be. And again, that's where I think the importance of the masculine approach compared to the feminine approach is really important, because the feminine's nature is going to be prevent. So it's in a mother's nature to prevent the child from going through their troubles. which is an important aspect. Somebody needs to make sure you don't have to experience too much trouble. But the father's going to teach you how to deal with the trouble instead of, prevent you from going through it. Because when the only method has been prevention, again, you have no resistance, you have no tolerance, you have no experience. And we know once you get into adulthood, struggle comes at you left, right, centre. So I think there's a balance between acknowledging the value of the struggle and protecting the child from the struggle. They're both very important. If you do too much of either, I think it's going to be detrimental.
They say
towards the
they
child.
say what they say. Say the worst preparation for life is a comfortable childhood.
Exactly.
But there is
Exactly. But now people that have been through excess trauma, that's all they need is comfort.
Yeah.
So they'd almost feel like I borderline can't understand you. But speak to the person who's had too much comfort and it's just like, I can't handle that. It just always overwhelms me. Everything always overwhelms me. So I think it's a balance. It's a balance. But to kind of conclude, I just think we have to, not just the man, don't just give the man that respect, give the woman that respect too. Like, what is the making of the toxic woman? Has she got healthy relations with mother? Has she got healthy relations with father? What environment did she grow up in? And both. And I think just approaching it like that, that's love in itself. It's not being the judge like, right, you've got that wrong. I'm scared of everything you're going to do now. Get away from me. It's like, that don't sound like love. Love is like really trying to deconstruct and understand that person, past, present, future. So I just think we could approach things with much more understanding and accountability. And I think that makes for a much healthier foundation to build upon. And me, I was guilty of that. I didn't approach women like I was saying. I'd be more challenging. You'll notice you've done something wrong. It's like, see? It's like, that's not going to lead. That's never going to approach. It's
You just
never
get
going to
straight
be
on the
beneficial.
defensive,
Yeah,
don't you? And having a mutual definition of love as well, because I think, and this is kind of like inspired by reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. Like one of the first things she talks about is that all of these a lot of the struggles that we have like interpersonally, whether it be like in friendships or romantic relationships or with your family, it boils down to, a lot of it boils down to, we have different definitions of love. And I think, if we get on that same page about what love is to us, because there is many layers to it. And, love to one person, for example, an abusive person or an aggressive person, could be like, for example, you say, not saying you're abusive or aggressive, but when you say that you were challenging the women in your life, that was your version of love at that time. That was one way you expressed love at that time. It's like, I'm challenging you now because I want to see you progress. But then another person, the person receiving that might receive it like, well, no, that doesn't feel loving to me. And like I go since reading this, I've been going on this definition of love being that commitment to each other's personal and spiritual growth. I think that's it's a great umbrella definition of love.
And it encompasses all different dynamics, doesn't it? Yes. Because even now, obviously I'm no longer with my son's dad, but the love is there. Do you know what I mean? Not like romantic love, but the love that makes me hopeful that he will, well, we're in a good place now. I think initially when we first split up, it was very toxic. So, welcome. We've got a new guest, guys. It's a little bit late, but that's okay. We're introducing you as Manuka, are we?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Greetings, family.
Greetings.
Yes,
Thank you for joining us.
Yo, grateful to finally arrive on your platform.
Yeah, thank you for blessing this space. So today we're talking a little bit about, obviously it's a follow-on from the last one. We're talking sort of childhood trauma and how that's like led into adulthood, how we're choosing our relationships, how we're showing up in the family dynamics, and I guess how like the constructs in society that kind of also affect how we present as a man, as a woman, differences in masculine and feminine energy. What does it mean? What does love mean? There's a lot of questions that we're answering today. So where were we just? We was just kind of talking about, I'd gone into talking about love for the father of my son, because it's like, okay, we're not in a relationship. There's no romantic connection with us. but I still have love for him.
Yes.
Like, you know, I want the best for him because he's the role model to my son. But also, like, I don't really understand the malice, like why people have malice. But I think that's probably because I'm in a situation where I didn't want to hold on to the relationship, where I think sometimes if a guy leaves the family household or he breaks up with the woman, there's an element of her being like, how dare you do that?
I think it's an important stage, like feeling that rage and allowing yourself to feel it and expressing it in whatever way, as long as it's, you know, like not too much in front of the child. Like, but I think it's an important stage to feel that and then move on.
You mean rage of...
Or the malice that you were talking about, you know, like if, for example, if the guy leaves.
Right. That's different. That's what I'm saying. I didn't have that that emotion because I knew the relationship was not... It wasn't us. It's like, yes, we're now a family unit, but between me and you, it just wasn't there anymore. So I was really upset. I was grieving because there was a version of him that I'd created that actually I felt in the end, does it exist? Does he love me? Because if he did, how could he say these things to me? You know, there would be things that I'd say and I felt attacked by them. And I came to a conclusion, like, you obviously don't love me then. So I then thought, okay, I was hurting, but I was at peace with the fact that my nervous system in that relationship was erratic and I couldn't live like that. So I was like, right, I'm looking for my peace and my happiness. And there was rage initially between us because obviously we're now trying to do this co-parenting thing. We're trying to find a new dynamic. We need this new balance. And I said, you know, okay, we're struggling to do that ourselves because of the heat of the relationship coming to an end. But why don't we go and speak to somebody? You know, like, let's see someone. It's like therapist. It's family therapy because we need to present a new normal for our child. It wasn't on board at the time, but I think I'm just grateful to have got to a place where me continuing to show up and pour love into a situation that actually for a long time didn't feel like I was getting anything back. You know, I wanted to do family things. I wanted to go on family days out. I wanted to spend time together as a family, not because I'm trying to get back with you or because I want us to be together, but because I need our son to see that we can...
You are still a family.
We are a family, yeah. Because he wanted mummy and daddy together. And I explained to him, okay, that's not possible, but let's do what we can to let daddy know that it's something that you want, kind of thing. So he started praying. He started praying for him and, you know, like, I'd join him. Like, we do affirmations in the morning and we do, like, it's kind of like a gratitude prayer at night, but... I don't know if that's played a role in where we're at now, but he invited his dad for dinner at my house when he was bringing him home to do handover. And he came to the door and they said, hey, Mum, I invited Dad for dinner. Is that okay? And I was like, wow. I was like, wow, because part of me, when I was preparing that meal, thought, how nice would it be if he could just come in, have some food with his child, and go. It was actually a process that I was going through in my head. So when he came to the door and said that, I was like, you want it, kid? I've got enough food. Your dad can get fed. And it was such a pleasant experience. And I think since then there's been a lot more of those kind of things happening. We can spend time together. I can go and do things for his birthday or whatever. But it's taken 6 years for us to get to that point. And I think my point was pouring love into a situation that it felt like a dead end. I've actually just seen the reward start to come in now. So
I think that was
6 years down the line.
Happy days.
We get there in the end, you know what I mean?
I was reading something the other day where part of what it was saying, or like the main takeaway that I had from it, was that there's two energies. No, it was just, it's an intro to a song actually, and she's kind of talking. It's a Salt song. And she's talking about how there's only two energies in the world, love and fear. And I was like, do I believe in that? And obviously there's lots of energies in the world, lots of different energies. But when I was like reflecting on it, I believe everything does root back to love or fear. And I think it simplifies a lot. You know, you can either navigate these dynamics, whatever dynamic in your life, from fear or from love. And I think if we just, like, as a people, and I guess this maybe, like, answers my own question from, you know, the beginning, is that if we just focus on learning how to love ourselves and each other and operating from a place of love rather than a place of fear, then things could be a lot more harmonious.
Facts.
For real.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for true.
Yeah, because the only thing, like, that just takes me back to what I was saying in terms of, like, leaving my family unit was scary. Being a single black mum, it was all of the labels I didn't want. I was in that relationship longer than I felt was natural to me through fear. But I would say, like, in the end, like, I left because of love. Love for myself, love for my son, and love for him as well, because obviously it wasn't a good situation for us, but, like, the thing that kept me there was fear of being, you know, this single mum.
But you can also
especially
leave out of fear, but you can also leave out of love. Like, it's such an interesting concept to explore, the way that love presents. And I think circling back to that need for a shared definition is so important. It's like, does this decision, is it based on love? Is it based on fear? And is it aligned with our shared definition of love? Like, is it going to like, if that was my definition, is it going to contribute to our mutual commitment to each other's personal and spiritual growth? And I think they're the main questions that we need to ask each other.
Yeah, and I also think that we're talking a lot of external elements, like the other person is an external element in your life, but there's the internal aspects as well, where it's like what condition are you in? That's going to determine how you receive everything. So, so if you're in taking it back to how we said, how was you raised? Like, you may have been raised around enough struggle to where you've got resistance and tolerance for it. So when you grow up and get in a relationship and someone criticizes you, it just bounces off you. You could have been raised where you was protected from everything. You've not experienced much. You never had anyone calling your names or anything like that. And someone criticizes you or judges you, and it's like, it's like you're really overly sensitive. Yeah, so that's part of, like, we need to kind of analyse our own conditions, because sometimes somebody may be in the wrong, but it's not as bad as you think. It's just your hypersensitivity is leading you to think, I'm being hard done by. And it's like, now let's say you're a woman, you grew without your dad. It's like, you're not accustomed to masculine energy. You're not accustomed to a man saying, do, like, in his tone, with no compromise, like he's supposed to be. And it's like, you're completely unaccustomed to it and just have almost an allergic reaction. Like, what was that? And now you've overreacted. Now you've built a whole narrative in your head, and you're doing something about it, and it stems mostly from your hypersensitivity.
Because
if we only ever analyze the external, we'll never see what part we're playing in the dynamic. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I feel like everyone here is quite self-aware. I don't know if that's always been the case, but
Definitely not.
No, not for me either. I feel like looking at those external things and me wondering, where's the gap in what I want and what I'm experiencing? What I see as an ideal and what I'm experiencing, there's a gap in those things. And that gap is coming from what I'm surrounded by externally, whether it's environment or people. So I think looking at the external factors, it's because you're trying to gauge where you stand and what you're like, what's going on inside is also reflecting on the outside. It's all part of the same kind of cloth, if you know what I mean.
But the gauge, I'd perceive the gauge or the compass, because you can gauge and compass from every layer of the myofascial and the koshas. You can be living on each of those realms, and it will give you a perspective point of a frame of reference to ground and root from, and okay, this is my basis from life. And it could be about 7 of them or more. But the one is the true source and the point of, like, alignment where you can have the fullest awareness and root back to rest. You know, in other spaces, it stays in a state of activity where it will accumulate an imbalance and tension because of the imbalance. And lack of awareness of that will allow us to externalize more because we're not rooted in the one source of perspective being totally inside. Yeah,
I feel like that takes an element of like isolation. I couldn't do that with too many people around me.
It's painful.
I had to really like make my circle small. That was easily done because there was a lot of like, I call it dead weight now. There was dead weight around me, and it would be the people I could easily call on to like go on a night out. You know, very easily accessible to call them and do that, but not someone who might come and sit with me to go to an art class or to go and do something in the library that I'm interested in looking at the archives. They're not them kind of people. Couldn't call on them for the things that was really deeply calling me. So while it's not like, oh, you're not up to my standard kind of person, it's like, okay, how beneficial is it for me to split my energy and my time by spending this time?
Pick your fruit.
Like pick your fruit, did you say?
Pick your friends like you pick your fruit.
Okay, how do you pick your fruit? I just squeeze it. I'll be like, hey, can you be my friend?
You're not gonna pick rotten fruit, are you? You take your time to kind of like see, is it ripe enough for me to pick right now? Are there any kind of like, you know, bits of rotten stuff on it? Like you pay attention to it essentially. Like, and you know, most of my life up until I started on this kind of path of like self-awareness, I guess, back in 2015. That's when I first experienced meditation and, you know, learned to pay attention to my breath, which is so simple, but it was just an absolute life changer. Before that point, like before that point, all of my relationships, I had no self-awareness, no social awareness. I think we were talking about this in the last episode. No social awareness, no self-awareness. Everyone around me, all of my relationships, when I look back on it, were rooted in fear, and it was coming from a place I was connecting, or what I thought was connecting, from a place of abandonment and like just completely broken attachment. You know, I'm learning now. Another great book to read is Hold On to Your Kids by Gabor Mate, which talks about how a lot of our kids are now like peer orientated rather than family orientated, and like how that all the ways in that, like, it's a parenting book, but I'm listening to it and it's making all my childhood make sense now. Which, as it goes with any parenting book that I've read, all of my relationships, it was like whoever would have me around, I'm like, have me around, you know, like, and I look back and there was nothing in common. It was just like they were there at that time. And I think part of it is natural when you're a kid. You're not really looking out for, you know, like what qualities you want for in a friend. But when I look back on it, you know, those relationships didn't make any sense. Like, they were just there and I was there, and I'm not in touch with anyone really from that time. But now all my relationships are, whether that's, you know, like family relationships and friendships and I don't have romantic relationships, but if I was looking for romantic, and this is an obvious one, but looking for romantic relationships, I make sure they're rooted in love rather than fear. And it's a constant, I have to constantly check myself because there is so much fear instilled in me from the level of neglect that I've experienced all the way through my life, up until very recently as well, that I'm still doing a lot of work to work upon. So that, like, my conditioning is mostly fear. You know, I was raised in a very kind of like fearful way because of, you know, the dynamics with all of my caregivers, but different. They presented in different ways, but a lot of different shades of fear was instilled in me growing up. So it takes a lot of work to recognise that, you know, healing your heart and learning about yourself is like the most important thing we can do in this life, you know, because it starts with self, as you were saying. It goes through all of the koshas, all of your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies, that does relate to the people you attract in life, and like this conversation, for example, it's like we're all on a similar level, and it's brought us together to have this conversation, which we're going to share with the world, which I think is amazing.
This is it. And what you were saying before about like what does collective work look like? To me, this is collective work. Just having the conversations, because there's different dynamics, and we have this tendency to kind of struggle, silence, shame. There's a lot of like shame surrounding, like you said, about benefits, about being a single parent, or, you know, being a father who's lost access to the children. It's like, well, what did you do? What's gone on there, kind of thing. It's like there's stigma attached to all of our situations, and I just think like being able to talk about it in a well-rounded way and share it, for me, it feels like a contribution. There's a lot more work to do collectively. I think people are doing it now. I think being in this circle and doing this kind of work, I've seen you know, people doing different things. It could be in the arts, it could be expression, retelling stories, bringing in sounds from, you know, I guess it's like African sort of. It's more African. It's spirituality.
It's African, you know, traditional Caribbean. You know, it's like bringing us back to the village, and the village doesn't only start in Africa.
Right.
You know, there's villages all across the diaspora. There was diaspora before we start speaking diaspora in the millennia. You know what I mean? We have chatted across the lands, and, you know, plotted seed, and, you know, grown community from the beginning of time, and we're just carrying on the work forward from our ancestors, and we're forward with that. But what we have to realize is that with the work of light, there comes the shadow of that, which is the darkness.
As in, it's a target. Anything that you're doing in the work,
in a
the
sense,
light work is a target.
Or like let's take, because target is quite 2D. Let's bring it into, because 2D could be seen as like a static stretch. So how do we remediate static stretching? We do dynamic stretching, something that's in like a 3D motion. So think of it more like a tug of war. Visualization. So like visualization of like concepts, ideas that we have, taking it from a 2D visual aspect to a 3D, can free up the mind and blood flow and hypertension in the body, because we freed up the idea from being something that is like that, something that is like this,
expansion,
and then it gets volume. And that goes with the idea of bringing breath into the body, and like the geometry of like your manifestation or your mantra that you want to speak. So back onto the talk of love, we have to appreciate that the shadow of love will come in, which is fear. So we have to prepare for the tug of war. But we're not taught that. We're only learned that in experience. But then through the experiences, because we enter these experiences with our ancestral trauma, our life experience traumas, it has shaped us in ways, in molds of ways, but we are meant to be flowing in ways, and always we're meant to be flowing in all ways, every ways, in expansion, in condensation, moving through gaseous, solid formation. But if some part of us are crystallized into molds through trauma, which is what forms in the body. That's how form of trauma's in the body. It crystallizes a moment with your energy, a moment in time, and it petrifies you. Turns you into stone.
It's like a rock inside your blood, isn't it?
That's the Medusa concept,
Okay.
What happens when Medusa gets you? The man them are running in fear. But the only time that like man them succeeds in overcoming Medusa is that he has the courage, he has the will of God. The Almighty has given him a message and said, go here, do this, you will succeed. And he goes in with chest and he overcomes. And he doesn't become petrified. So, you know, just to be taking it at that level of perspective, because the whole Medusa thing is a whole of a deeper thing, but like there's a pinch of salt to take from everything that there. So that's the pinch of salt that I'll take from that. In that, you know, when we then enter into these interactions with people, whether it be business, social, romantic, familial, whatever, we're entering in with crystallized parts of ourselves that are set ways, whether it's introverted, extroverted, sensitivity. But the opposite of sensitivity is numbness, yeah? So then it's like that polarity. And then if you want to look at it a logical way to try and get to the healing, you're like, okay, let me try and balance numbness and sensitivity. Yeah, work your way back to the middle, something like that. So, you know, a way to approach the work. So I'll just have to say, it's just like, you know, all right, on this journey, the awareness that there's some ways of ourselves that are just set in ways that are going to pull us or push us in certain ways. Just being aware of that and making that little wrestle, WWE, little fun little game that goes on. You know what I mean? Smack down on people's elbow. I mean, get, you know what I mean? With the awareness, make it comedy, make it fun, make it a drama, fun drama. Because you know that shit's going to play anyway. Someone's going to trigger you. So it's make sure that your trigger comes into certain cosplay, something funny, you know what I mean? Something that is going to give you, you know, because it's going to happen. And then we focus on the real present tug of war where we can be present and start pouring into this space that the more that we pour into it and, you know, surrender to whatever may come in and might even reflect past things, we just carry that awareness and sharpen that awareness every time until eventually enough time will pass where we've mastered that time of experience and then new tissues in the body form in the way that we've been thinking, and then the body automatically moves in ways because we've built tissue over those 7-year period with that intention. So then we can start thinking about other things, so then we've got more space to think about other things in life, and we're not tied down by the things that we're tied down in our first decade of our life.
Do you think you can be born? Do you think you can be born with those crystals already formed inside you from your parents?
Yeah, like say it's like stress. That's why they say, oh yeah, let's not have the mother going through too much stress, because like tension, hypertension, you know what I mean? It's like that's a example of it, you know? So yeah, it's best to be relaxed and breathing and expanding, you know what I mean? And if you're going to contracting with the breath, you know what I mean? Always being in touch with the flow, you know?
Can I ask, are you finished saying what you're saying?
Yeah.
There's a few layers to this. So I guess I'll start by, you know, with me and you had a conversation this summer, didn't we? Quite an in-depth conversation. And I guess that's why I thought it would be good to, you know, bring you here and join in this conversation. So we got very spiritual and expansive there. If I was to bring that back down to the kind of like very much this realm side of that conversation, obviously I don't want to like, you know, share loads of details about your situation, but it makes me wonder, like, how does that apply to your situation in relation to your child? And kind of I was coming from, when we were having our conversation, and we've had this conversation as well, is talking about the father being removed from the home. And I was speaking from my perspective. This was regarding our conversation of having not having a father around, but not remembering any any kind of like court appearances. Like, I've always had that question, like, why did my father not fight for me? You know, why has he just gone all this time and just accepted that he's not allowed to have access to his kids? And I recognise now that I had a lot of blind spots in that, and it was when we were speaking about it as well that you helped me realise those blind spots. I know you might have a perspective on this as well. So my question is, I guess, like, how have and do you integrate all of this kind of self-work, self-knowledge, kind of like healing stuff to your situation, your family dynamic, to your presence in your child's life and the influence you have on your child and the healing, that kind of like family dynamic?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, being, you know, stepping into the healing that I was just previously speaking about, you know, it's like it's painful to go through that in the presence of being absent from my son, you know, being removed from the family home, you know, is my present focus. It is the fact that I am removed from there, and whatever I'm doing elsewhere is the beginning of me being removed from the family home. So then every day, that is the start point. Yeah, and it's just really painful, and the gravity wants to pull me like below the surface of the earth. So it's like I'm having to focus very strong on what can I do in order to be the man that my son needs me to be. Yeah. Now, ultimately, that would be for me to be present in his life and be doing, the fatherly duties and things. But with me, by force and law, not being allowed access to that for the time being, I'm having to, utilize my resources that I have to the best, which, from an outward perspective would come across as being quite selfish. However, I find myself being quite selfless in the pursuit of, giving this moment in time to myself, because I've been riding the middle of the fence for much of my younger life, kind of being undecided, when it comes to indecisive, when it comes to making choices, sitting on the fence and thing, So when I asserted myself into manifesting my son into this reality, like that was the beginning of me stepping into my mature energy and, being like, I want these things in life. But I was wanting something that I also didn't have the prior preparation and foundation for. So stepping into that space without the resource and preparation to receive a woman and to receive a family, meant that this is the natural course, Not only because we broke up due to a falling out, misunderstanding of whether, I loved her or whether there was love in the space, or whether I was, being unfaithful, There was just no time to sit with where I was at on the journey. So that ended up being the result of where we were at. So, my focus is to develop myself to be the man that a woman or my baby mother would need in order to support her, and to support to provide for the family. So that's what I'm really focusing on right now, and that is the polarity that I'm using. That's the motivation that I'm using to really drive me through this polarity that's really heavy for me right now. Painful to be going through a development process, working through creative processes, because as an artist, working through creative processes and creating, everything has to come through my pain that is inside. And for a long time, I haven't addressed these things. I'm only just addressing matters of true responsibility, maturity, and adulting things of my life right now, And I just required more patience and, being a very assertive, fiery, assertive woman. Time is something that she didn't want to share with me in order for me to be ready for her, truly. And I really loved and wanted to be ready for her. But I know that time management is something I truly am having to work on in this lifetime. I know that, but that's not something that she could appreciate in me and, sit around for. Patience.
Yeah. So you're just kind of pouring all that love and intention that you want to be spending and giving to your family onto yourself. Yeah. And what do you think the next step is?
Growth, beyond my wildest dreams, behind beyond everyone's wildest dreams.
As in towards your son?
Towards my son, so then I can recreate a reality where we are magnetized together as a family unit. It could be, it doesn't have to be romantic, but as Neenagh has achieved within her family unit, 6 years down the line, sounds beautiful, I would very much like to be present in my son's life, growth and development, and him calling me over for dinner and thing. Yo, boy, that's sweet me. That one's sweet me.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm
Power of
grateful.
sharing food, huh?
Right, and breaking bread together, because I think at first his dad was it was scared. It was like, no, I don't want anything to do with if we're not in the same, household kind of thing. We're not a family. And I felt so rejected by that because I was, ready to just work together for Isaiah's sake. But I think, like you say, I'm very, very grateful where we're at now. But it's taken me to really settle myself, not be so reactive, not so responsive, defensive. And if something triggers me, I didn't react. I stopped reacting because I felt like, okay, that's a waste of my energy. What is the reason for this, triggering? Why are you trying to trigger me? I didn't really understand why. Because certain things, I think, with me, the ADHD, for example, presents itself in certain ways. I don't believe it's a disorder, but it does manifest itself quite complex when it comes to relationships. Obviously, I'm impulsive. I don't like to sit on something. If I want something, I've got a concept. My mind's built the concept. The vision is there. Why are we not making steps towards this? Why are we standing still? Why are we waiting? I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm very if I want shit done, I have to move towards doing that. And I think that was one of the things that, in my previous relationship was difficult because he's kind of just take a breath, chill, calm down. Just take time. And I'm time's running. We've got to move that. But that's how I live my life. And I understand, not everybody is the same. And I'm okay with that because I know, I'm quite demanding of myself. I'm demanding of my world and what I want from it. And I will drive. I have this pervasive drive to move towards what I want all the time. And I think it's quite exhausting. If you're in a relationship, if somebody is not entirely on the same page, they think that maybe you're just a dreamer. But it's no, we can buy land. We can live sustainably. But in order to do that, we have to move along the chessboard. Yeah, I might have to buy a property. Then we might have to remortgage, take the cash out. There's a process to these things. But in my opinion, if they can be done, then they get done. So, yeah, it's just finding, like you say, I guess someone who's compatible with that and just being at peace with the idea of bringing a child into the world and it actually not working out how you thought it would. Because that's tough, I think, for anybody, for the way it's worked out with both of you guys, and not having access to a child. I can't even process the thought of how that would be and how that sort of looks and how you manage to cage that rage, because there's been times where my son's been, kept away from me for 17 days was the actual amount. And I was distraught. I couldn't function. I couldn't cope. I couldn't exist in that space without feeling like I was going to take a head off. How... I'll start with you, Wrighz. How have you... Because I know that you're quite vocal about it, and I know that's your way of dealing with it. It's therapeutic, but how do you manage it?
See, I think it's the power of the truth. The power of the truth is limitless. So the power of truth and understanding. So once I started to understand my own weaknesses and my own shortcomings, my own downfall, everything just made sense. And as
Okay.
hard as it is to deal with, just being in alignment with the truth and understanding something, it will make a scenario that seems unbearable to one person, it will make it just about bearable for you because you understand it. So it's back to like what you were saying. I just realized I need to go inside myself and do the internal work and work on me. And I started to become I called it like radical accountability, like almost just being merciless to the man in the mirror, and being serious about improving those weaknesses as opposed to trying to like, you know, basically like trying to deny them. Everyone's always fighting their corner, but sometimes you have to go within yourself and have to fight with self, which is the hardest fight you'll ever fight in your life. So I started to look at it like, how much could the me that I've realised I am, how much benefit could he be to my sons? Not as much as I thought. So then I started to imagine, okay, so if this never happened and if never shaken me up and they just got to have me as the dad I was for the rest of their life, it would have limited their potential so much. So it starts to turn into a blessing. You start to realise, right, this is a blessing. As painful as it is, this is giving me the opportunity to overcome myself in order to be the man I need to be, so my son doesn't grow with these exact limitations that I've got, or these exact traumas or whatever. So it started to become, you know, he started to be able to play with it a little bit, as crazy as that would sound, 'cause it's the most serious thing. It's broken me down to tears, to I couldn't even put it into words, but it's just, it turns into something like, okay, I see what this is, and I see how I can scale this obstacle. And when I do, my sons are gonna have somebody that's worthy of them and somebody that can bring out their full potential through sharing this experience. So eventually I'm going to make them see why it was a blessing for them as well. So it started with just accountability. Before there was any accountability, it was the most painful thing ever.
Right.
And then after the accountability and I met the truth, and then I started to form understandings, and then I was just working in harmony with life, and we're still here now. Like, it's brutal, but... Like,
but you're getting
we made
space
sense,
to
made
do
sense
that
of it,
work.
and then you can almost apply that to anyone's troubles, and you can see the same applies for everybody. It's like, if you can just beat your ego and go within yourself, you'll start to see the things that really caused things to happen in your life, and you start realizing how powerful you are. Because before that, you was implying that everyone else has got power. If only you'd do this, then I'd be able to. If only you. And it's like, nah, that's powerless talk. So he started to talk the language of power, and that starts with self. So that's where I'm at with it at the moment. It's not easy though. I'm not trying to make it sound easy, but yeah, that's where I'm up to though.
Thank you.
Ashe.
Yeah.
Man.
And you, what about yourself? Have you dealt with your dynamic?
Yeah, so I'll refer back to, you mentioned caging the rage, and it's like yes and no. Like I can answer for both. So yes to caging the rage, because when it comes to a man doing his work, especially his work of purpose, a man has to go inside, in order to create that. It's internal work, it's introvert work. That man has to do that. He has to disappear, almost poof, and then reappear. Manifested a change, a shift, shaped the earth. Done what he's meant to do. So in that, like, man's cultivating his essence, and shaping his will, sharpening his abilities so that he can be in a position to provide and protect, as the father's meant to be, And again, for no towards caging the rage is because it's like work is being done, the working of self. So it comes full circle, really. It's like whenever we give anything, there's the polarity present with it, and there's only a matter of time before that orientation will shift. And that's not anybody's fault. That is the nature of life. We go from sunshine to darkness, spring to winter. But then we forget in our own interpersonal interactions that, like, when things are good and then it goes the other way. We think it's somebody's fault when that things are just rotating naturally, circadian rhythms and all of that. You know what I mean? So like these cycles are always running. So when we like connect heaven and earth, yeah, and this is us, we are being that connecting piece where we're giving honoring to the divine and showing the understanding of that, and then we rotate, yeah, and we're showing our understanding of how the divine operates, yeah. So yeah, on that work of self, yeah, work is being done, and so results might not be instantly seen in order to like satisfy gratification quite quickly, but like good things take a while, no? You know what I mean? That diamonds take a while, like things of true longevity and fervent purpose, we wait for those things, so it's just like when we speak about awareness, for me now, because this journey of like work came to me early, it's like I've got this such a deep, clear perspective that like everything is fine. We just have to keep holding on, you know what I mean? And like holding on is like the expression of love or commitment or whatever word you want to put on it, you know what I mean? It's like, just work, exercise your discipline and multiply. Don't keep it in the corner. It's in the corner. Utilize the essence of the corner for it to root out and grow.
It's been really, all of your perspectives have been very illuminating for me. Like being the other side of that, being a solo parent who has had to just draw the line with my daughter's father, because it was. I have a clear conscience because I know that I've tried everything that I can, all different kind of dynamics, but it's been a really important. I'm similar to you, I have a very impulsive nature. It's in check mostly, but when I'm so clear that I want something to be a certain way, or I want to work towards something, it's like, okay, I'm doing what I can do right now in a certain situation. Like I want it yesterday. But yeah, it's in check most of the time. But with the situation with my daughter's dad, because I've had to, it's been a journey of just calling it what it is. And having to draw that line because it was an abusive situation, and there's just a lot of mental health stuff at play. So it's been a journey for me of like just working through the layers of like starting with like, okay, what's going on here physically, like facing the facts of what's right in front of me. Like, fact of the matter is, even though we're pretty much broken up early pregnancy, and I found out I was pregnant, and then it's been a journey of trying to figure it out. The fact of the matter is that he is her dad, so we've got to do everything we can in this realm, like logistically, emotionally, mentally, the stuff that we can control, I can control, and I'm going to try and control it. So it was a long journey of that, and always like circling back after a period of no contact. Okay, where are you up to? Are you ready? Can you show the basic level of respect, commitment, respect and consistency to your daughter at the very least? Me, great, but as long as you can be here consistently for your daughter, great. Circle back every few months. It was never, in that place. And those periods got longer. So I reached a point where it's like I can be very like black or white, all or nothing. So I've been in a place, and I guess up until this conversation, I've been in a place where I'm like, okay, well, that's it. I just got to draw the line, and it's been like, okay, that's done. Like it's all on me, and this is how it's going to be, from here on out. But my concept of time kind of goes out the window a little bit, and talking about, I've not seen your sons in 6 years. Your son's not that much younger than my daughter, I don't think.
About 6 months. About 6 months I haven't seen him. 6 months,
yeah. But in terms of his age, but that's old. A long time.
2 years old.
He's 2 years old, okay. Not too far behind my daughter. She's 3 next month. It's just been a really important reminder that And I always, so yeah, going back to working through the layers, I've eventually got to a point, it's like all I can do is hope and pray that this time that we're not talking and he's not in contact with his daughter, that he is doing that work, he is learning to take accountability. He is, you know, just like really doing this deep healing work that is so important to then eventually be able to do it. But I guess it's my impatience where it's like, well, he's not there now. Like, he's got this daughter, she's a beautiful blessing. I'm a blessing, you know? Like, why is he not there yet? Like, come on. Sort yourself out, dude. So then I've like drawn that, yeah.
Does she ask about him? Does she ask about...
So the last time I took her to see him was, I think it was in like April, May this time, and that was because she was asking about him. And that was the last time that he's seen her, just for a couple of hours in the park. But no, since then she's not. And I speak to her, she's really great. She's an emotional genius, this little one. Like, because I've always been kind of explaining and breaking down emotions and feelings and sensations to her, and she's able to, you know, I'm able to speak to her about this kind of stuff, but she's not asked about him. I'm interested to know how it's going to play out in the future, you know, especially like with how like kids shows and books and songs are all about mummy and daddy, and she sings these songs and talks about mummy and daddy in kind of like a, I guess, fictional, imaginative sense. But I just observe it for now. When she's a bit older, we'll try having the conversation about how she's feeling about it and stuff. But yeah, I always have to just, and it applies to most aspects of my life that I feel like I'm trying to control, circle back to just like that hope, that faith, and just praying that, yeah, he's got to get to a similar place. And it might take 6 years, it might take however long. Like with my dad, it took him 17 years. You know, but then we only had a really short time together before he passed away. It was like less than a year. So like I really hope that doesn't play out, you know, in this situation. But it's like it's been a really important reminder that, you know, it may take a lot of time because there's so much trauma there, so many crystals, you know, in people's bodies, and you know that they have to like work through to be able to access certain parts of the brain and their nervous system and their psyche to know, like, actually, like, okay, yeah, I need to work on this. So yeah, thank you for all of your perspectives, and I'm also, if you're open to talking about it, interested to hear your perspectives on going through the court system. Like, I know it was not until I had this conversation with Neenagh over the phone when we were talking about this kind of like second part that illuminated my blind spots, because I always had that question, like, why didn't it go through the court? And Neenagh was talking about her situation, and I'm like, okay, yeah, so it's not, even though it's essentially asking the white man for access to your kids, you know, which, I mean, you guys can talk a lot more about a lot more on that. But yeah, it's that was certainly a blind spot for me. And I think for a lot of listeners, they might be having the same questions, like, you know, if they've got an absent father, like, why has there been no fight? And yeah, I guess maybe you could talk more on like your personal opinion of the system and maybe your experience of going through that system.
100%. I mean, when I was younger, I'll start with my parents, because I know that there was a time where, like, my mum didn't want to see my dad, and he never really went to court, or he never did any of that. But I think that's because of the financial implication, and also, like, I didn't think he was that bothered. Like, I've spoke to him, like, as I've got older now, and I think it's more of a like, well, that's my seed kind of thing. Like, I created that human, and it was more of an ego thing, I think, for my dad to be involved. It wasn't like, I want to be here, I want to be contributing, I want to be responsible for the human. It was more of, well, these children came out of me kind of thing, where you go and keeping them away. So I've been through things with my own parents, and like at one point my dad literally took us off the street one time. We were playing out and he just come and kidnapped us. I know, I remember this. Like, I'm sure he doesn't mind me talking about it. My mum found us outside his, and she came and kidnapped us back. So I'm like, just got kidnapped. Yeah, they're playing. But yeah, in my story, as I've got older, I've developed a relationship with my dad. I've gone and looked for him, because as much as I've heard stories about you know, when I'm younger, all these reasons why I should stay clear. He hurt my mum. Do you know what I mean? He came from an abusive childhood. His mum was left in Jamaica. His dad was very violent. He was put in care early. Obviously, he's getting a lot of racial abuse in this country. He left his home at like 7. I think he was 7 when he came here, something. So for that transition, I understood at a very young age, it's not just that my dad's a prick.
Yes.
It's not just that my dad's a prick. There's more to it than that. I understood where my mum was coming from. She's hurting. She's in pain. He's not been faithful. He was abusive. I've seen him being physically violent to my mum. And that was tough. Like, I've witnessed that. But again, I know that he came the background that he came from. So when I got old enough to go and check for him myself, that's what I started doing. And then we built this kind of relationship where he's quite a spiritual person. And I see a lot of myself comes from him. So it's really nice to be able to identify with the part of myself in my dad that I couldn't identify with in my mum. Because there's it's like a jigsaw, isn't it? Yeah. And there's parts of me that I'm missing. I'm thinking, why am I like this? My mum isn't like that at all. But when I started spending time with my dad, I realised that there's parts of him that are in me. And yeah, my mum might not like that. They might be the parts of me that she doesn't like as well. She didn't like them in him. She didn't like them in me. Ooh. But obviously, if I get access to my dad, I get to accept them parts of myself. So I never really held it against him. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I never held it against him that he didn't fight for us. It just felt like a natural, like, process, and like he didn't want to fight with my mum, I think, in that setting. And I understand that, because as it happened with my son, obviously his dad wanted to, was it his dad or me? I can't remember. I think we both put an application into the court, and they went with one of us. They chose one of the numbers and went down that route. It was for arranging set days. I didn't want to do it to keep him away from him. I wasn't doing it for any other reason besides knowing where I stand and what I'm doing with my life, because I need set days, set times. There's no going and getting him when you want, and I turn up at nursery and he's not there. Like, none of that. I needed that stuff not to happen. So yeah, I went through the court system, and what I found was they got social services involved to do like a Section 7 report, because at the time there was a lot of conflict, shouting, screaming, lots of things happening that are not happening anymore. But I think for that reason, they needed to check that everything was safe, and they were in the houses, like checking he was fine here, fine there. Obviously, we didn't have to pay, but I felt that they were quite judgmental of our situation and almost insinuating that we were failing as parents because we can't reach an agreement of these things, you know, because there was a lot of conflict. And in the end, I kind of just said, you know what, sack it, just forget about this. I don't want your written agreement. We'll sort it out amongst ourselves. And that's what we've ended up doing. The court order does not say shit. It literally says parents will agree amongst themselves.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they couldn't do anything. They couldn't really do anything. They can't dictate for you. They can check that everything's fine. But if you want one thing, the other person wants another, how does it get ruled? It doesn't really. They just want to keep you coming in, coming out. So yeah, we just ended up leaving it. And then I think since then we've had to go down the route of just sort of speaking to each other to sort those kind of things out, which, yeah, it's worked out all right. I didn't enjoy going through the system. I didn't enjoy going to court. And I didn't enjoy them telling me, like, part of the reason my son's back in mainstream now is because I was going through court at the time. And they sent the police round to my house to do a welfare check, saying my son's not going to school. I said, I've gone through your forms and put him as home educated. So there's no reason why you're coming here to do a welfare check. It's also 10:30, so you can fuck right off. You're not coming in my house. Are you mad? So yeah, they were also like, we advise that you look for, a setting for Isaiah, and a lot of the court system was just me being like, you know what? Okay, I'll do what is ticking your boxes and taking the heat off my little boy kind of thing. But I had to sacrifice what I really wanted to do with my son because it was making me look bad in court. They were like, home education, what is that? What are you doing? They really couldn't grasp that concept. So yeah, it wasn't a pleasant experience for me. We've ended up sorting it out ourselves. It's a waste of time, and I feel that it's it's just another aspect of control, like we were saying in the last episode. It's just another way of them being able to do this. We don't need you because you're not going to make anything better. In fact, it antagonise the situation because we both know that we're going to court, and that means I'm against you. And it's all like, you've got this energy.
Defensive environment.
Because it's like they put you against each other. And you feel like against each other because of just the construct of the whole thing. So in my opinion, I would just really call out to anybody who's in that situation and urge them to really just put their ego down, put the child at the forefront of their mind, and understand that the best way to move forward and progress is to cooperate. Sometimes that takes compromise, it takes sacrifice, it takes moving on where you want to be with something, because there's another person involved in that child's life, and you can't get away from that. There's no escaping that. And I think when I accepted that and realised I can't have everything my own way. No, it's not going to be perfect. It's not ideal. It won't be perfect. And that's just where we're at. And now I'm at peace with that. When I made peace with that, things started to just feel better because I wasn't raging about it anymore. And I think once that energy was kind of around us, it's just invited more positive experiences and a lot more love into the environment that we're in now.
That's it.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah, no, it is. It's. I'm genuinely.
My thing, I never went through the courts. So I got after. So as I explained the first time round, 6 out of 7 years, I've not seen my son, but that was broken down into 2. So the first half of it was 3 years. Then I was with them for a year, then it reoccurred again for the So it wasn't a 6
that's a lot.
straight. Yeah. So the first time round, I didn't deal with the courts. But I got a court order after about 18 months or something like that, saying, so basically, I think that she just tried to make some form of a domestic case, so her court fees can be paid for and whatnot.
Oh, so the domestic abuse kind of vibe. Yeah,
yes.
they did.
So there's not been no domestic abuse, so they couldn't just use the generic, there's been domestic abuse. So they use what I was posting online. There's a few things I posted online which I look back now and it's it's ridiculous. I was panicking, I was desperate. I was just so what had happened is someone had seen my sons, I think in a Tesco in Stretford, and secretly filmed them and sent it to me and said I didn't know if I should be doing this, but but I was grateful for it. I could understand how it's a bit invasive and it's almost a bit spooky. It's I'm not even present. So I could understand for them that's the worst thing ever from their mum and their grand's part and whatnot. But that led me to, so I've said on a status, so I've shown the video and said if anyone I know sees them, feel free to do this and send it to me. So now they've shown that to the courts, and then they've kind of just twisted my approach I was taking. I was I had vision boards on my wall. I was just adamant about, building myself and overcoming this. They was using things like that to just say he's obsessed with the idea of succeeding, being this guy. So it was a case to make me look like I'm kind of losing my mind and I've been a bit abusive and So I got a 12-month order to not be allowed on their street, to not be allowed, anyone I know can't contact them, I can't post any pictures of them. Yeah. So at the time now, that kind of gave me... See, I've not even been on the street. I wasn't going knocking on the door. There was no harassment, no nothing, which I think her ego kind of took that a bit like, almost, how dare you? Like, so I was kind of, from I started to realise, like, nah, this is on me. I was just giving them their space. So I try and contact them every now and then. I try and contact their other family members, but I'd not been on the street. I'd not been ringing out her phone. There'd been no form of harassment. So the order didn't affect me in that way.
Right.
How it did affect me was in a positive way, that I knew for a fact over the next 12 months I will not be seeing them. Before that, it was like every single day I woke up with hope. Today they might phone, today they might knock on the door, today something might happen. Whereas that gave me a solidified 12 months of it, nothing's definitely going to happen, and it helped me actually really start to focus on myself and what needed to be focused on.
So that 12-month, she managed to get an order that kept you away for the children for 12 months?
Yeah, no, so I've already been away from them for a significant amount of time, but due to really it was about, I'm not allowed to post any pictures of them for this 12 months.
Right.
I'm not allowed to go on her street for 12 months. I've not been on her street.
So where was the contact arrangement order then, as in why they're not giving you out?
To start with, she'd invited me to court, and I'd not seen, wasn't going anyway, in all honesty, but I'd not seen the invitations because I was moving from place to place. I didn't have no solid place I was living because of all the drama. So I'd missed the first few. But like I say, that's not an excuse, because I was taking my stance as it was anyway. Because my thing is about, I'm not trying to see my kids. Do you know how much deeper it is than seeing your kids? See, man that kind of accept them things without an awareness that it goes beyond that, kind of buy into a trap where it's like, now your relationship consists of seeing them and financing them, partially contributing financially. And it's like, that's two of about 1,000 aspects that makes up fatherhood. So it's like all of the other aspects, you're not being given opportunity to even be a real father. So it's almost like you've been demoted to this kind of like a financer and somebody who kind of just sees them. So it's like, seeing my children has never been, it's like, they're my children, they're not my friends. Like, see them. It's like, I need time with them. Like, I need power. I need control. I don't mean complete control where you've not got any.
You mean influence?
I need enough influence. I need to be able to influence the aspects of their life that's really going to shape their future. I need to be able to protect them. I need to be able to have access to them at all times. So it's like, seeing them. No, if it's not, God, you can hold them for a minute while I work on myself. I can't accept that. That was like a big blow to my ego, to my soul, to everything, to my son. The way my eldest son would have took that, like, see him. Like, he's my everything. Like, I learned, like how he said to me when we first got back together, he said, I realised that you're my power. So he said, when I'm with you, I feel powerful.
Wow.
And when I'm not with you, I don't feel powerful. So it's like, do you think he just wanted to see me? It's deeper than that. So that was my stance of like, I don't want to go through the whole court thing to just see the person. It's like the amount of stories I was hearing where people got access to them, but then the mum wasn't sticking to the plan and was keeping them away on the days of the dads, and the court's kind of easy going about it. But when the dad doesn't stick to his end of the thing, it's like, they're a bit more strict.
Yeah, they are.
So just hearing all these things, it just didn't give me the incentive to follow it that way. And that doesn't mean I'm not fighting for them. That's why I've documented this like extensively, to be able to prove like I dedicated every second of my life to you, whether I was with you or not. Everything I had done from that moment stemmed from you and the betterment of you. So that's documented, because it can look like, understandably so, the child could grow up and say, why didn't my dad fight for me? So I know that my sons will never be able to say that, because it's documented. Like, I've just took a different approach to the fight.
Yeah.
There's different ways to fight things.
It's a more effective approach as well. Like that thought of like, why is not being fighting for me, was like when I was younger. Like understanding trauma. And the same applies to, the situation with my daughter's dad. It's like, that's another layer to it. Like, it's like there's the very like right here, like logic, very much this realm, like, okay, courts, give me permission or whatever it is I need to see my kids. That's just one layer, that's just one element, like, but it's not just seeing your kids, it is like you need to actually be able to be the parent that you need,
Yes.
and that it's understanding your own and each other's trauma, learning to navigate each other's nervous systems, and understanding like the way each other's minds work, because so you can actually be there for each other, you know. And there's layers to it, and I'm really it's a really valuable perspective and approach you've taken. It's very illuminating for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people, and hopefully it can spark plant some seeds in some people as well.
For my journey, it's like with my present situation, it's like I'm unable to pursue anything in the direction of my baby mom because there's restrictions that have been put in place against me because she reported acts of abuse from me towards her, and there was concern for the safety of my son in the environment that we're in. So I'm unable to contact her directly or indirectly for a period of time. So when it comes to, say, what have you done to fight for me, Dad? It's like, son, you need to understand that your mom did everything in her power to not allow me to have any energetic, physical involvement in your life. When we were living in the same abode for a period of time, whilst she was bearing child, and we were living together as a family of 3. At no point in time did I feel like I was fathering my son. Yeah. I didn't feel like I was having time to influence my son, control my son, shape my son, all them things you mentioned.
Yes.
I felt like I was in the habitat as a lodger, seeing my son.
Yeah.
In a flat. It's not a house.
Yeah.
So it's like, what have you done to fight to see me, Dad? It's like, you know what? Let me pour into me. Yeah, I'll see you soon, son. I am going to pour into me so much that you're gonna magnetize to me, son. Yeah, and you're gonna be looking at your environment, and you're gonna be feeling like something's really missing, yeah, because you're going to be shaped in the spirit of your father, coming through the flesh of your mother, and shaped in the experiences that she raises you up in, but you are the essence of your father, son, and your father, as a magnet, is going to keep on electrifying his essence, right? You're going to feel this legacy, you're going to feel this power, yeah? You're going to come to me, I'm going to come to you, yeah? Even then, like, even your baby mom, your mom's gonna feel it, and she's gonna. I'm in a position where I have to lean into my imagination and pray for things that seem so unbelievable, because the life that I'm living is unbelievable.
Trust me, it
works.
It
It's
does work.
visualization, it's
It really does.
manifestation.
Hopefully we can touch on like mother and father wounds and how they present, but what you mentioned before we were rolling, monogamy, relationships, like the dynamics of those, I guess. Well, this was more on a like sexuality front, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I was it's off the back of something that was said in the last episode, and also some of your bars from your music that I heard years ago, and it stuck with me because I really appreciate when artists express they're called alternative relating styles, alternative family dynamics, but I don't think they're really alternative. I think it's much more natural, personal opinion, than, how the monogamy, essentially, which is what's most prevalent in this day and age. But there's a bar on one of your tunes from years ago saying you don't subscribe to monogamy. Last episode, we were talking about how having a daughter has impacted how, like, your relationship with women and with the feminine. So I was just interested in, are you relating, like, has your non-identification with monogamy shifted during your fatherhood journey, like specifically fatherhood to a daughter? Do you still not subscribe to monogamy? Like how has that shifted, and how, like if you are in a non-monogamous like dynamic, how does that, I guess that's a really broad element of the question, like how does that look, like how?
So originally, like I was saying before, when I first became aware of the concept of monogamy and polygamy, it was probably late. I was probably like 21 or something like that. And I'd probably, prior to that, I'd never heard any of them words. Like, I wasn't really into all the, spirituality, the information. I was a football child, so I was borderline brain dead. I didn't care about any of this, so I'd never even heard of them words. But at that point in my life, the whole excess interest and excess involvement in women had already started. So I just latched onto that from a very egotistical, shallow, toxic basis. So it's like, yeah, this sounds like something that meets where I'm at right now, because I'm in love with this woman, I've got this going on with this woman, and that sounds like. So it was like, it was just all immature, egotistical and toxic originally. As I grew older and I started to inform myself and experience more things, I started to mature a little bit, but I still didn't have a complete understanding of it. The complete understanding, or not the complete understanding, the more developed understanding came after I read that The Way of the Superior Man book, and it's constantly, it's a deceiving title that's why I sent you the thing without telling you the title.
Right,
it's not a very attractive title, and you can borderline shut down before you've even took it in. But it's constantly talking about feminine energy and masculine energy, and it's a big percentage of the book is holding men accountable to be the masculine, and explaining how the masculine is different to the feminine in many different ways, i.e. the feminine's purpose and drive is to find love and be in love. So they say, if your professional career's all running nice as a woman, but your home life is not right, your love life is not right, you'll never feel complete. There'll always be something that's missing. It feels like it's missing in you. And on the contrary, with the masculine, if he's not, his kind of like purpose is the mission, pursuing the mission and to be free. Of course, he loves his family. It's not saying that the woman shouldn't pursue anything societal or success related. And it's not saying the man shouldn't care for his family and love his family. But if his family's everything's cool, but he's not on his mission, they're saying he'll always feel like a bit of himself's missing. That's just one of the examples. It shows you the difference between the feminine and the masculine. So that book broke that down so much to me that I realised, oh my God, I've been operating a lot from my feminine in relationships. Oh, wow, I'm not very masculine. And then the concept of monogamy was brought up in the book, explaining how the masculine is monogamous by nature. And originally, when we were more of a tribal people and we were less civilised and societal and modernised, that was the primary practice, polygamy. So that got me interested on it on a non-egotistical level, a bit more of a mature level, a bit more information-based. And it resonated with everything within me. So from then it was like, I may not be living a polygamous lifestyle as it stands, but I believe in it. Like, I believe in it. And at this point, I'm not running around with a million different women. I'm kind of settling down. Now, when my daughter's been born, remembering how my son's life started and the dynamics with my son and the way they were, and just getting to witness how she is, showed me the glaring differences between masculine and feminine before they're molded into something. When they're their true, innocent, spiritual sense, they're very different. You can't apply to a young baby girl what you can to a young baby boy. And that was glaringly obvious. It also filled, I said in the last episode, that whole excess interest in women was coming from a gaping hole within me that stemmed from my lack of relation with my mum. So once my daughter came into my life, it fit like a glove or like a puzzle. And the gaping hole was borderline gone. So my desire for women just almost disappeared. It didn't go to 0, but it went from 90 to 10.
Yeah.
To where it's like, I don't have this need for women, for like love, for attention, like to be bigged up. It's like she's made me feel whole. So my lifestyle has been the least reflective of polygamy over the last 5 years than it ever has been in my life. I've not had any type of experiences outside of my daughter.
Yeah,
and her mum.
it's a mindset more than like a behaviour.
Yeah, so now I respect the kind of concept, but not so much in relation with my life. I'm at the moment living a monogamous life, but I would be open to a polygamous situation if that's what my life brought to me.
Yeah.
And my current partner, my daughter's mum, is well aware of this as well, so it's not nothing I can't...
is she open to it as well? Like, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't polygamous specifically relating to the men having multiple partners and
Polyandry.
Polyandry is
yes,
that,
the
so
woman's
do you
version.
believe in polyandry, and does she?
I don't know so much. No, I believe in it like it's an occurrence. There's been like situations. Apparently, Tupac's mum was in that scenario a few times in her life. It's not something, I don't think it's alien, but I think when it becomes in the matter of having children, before we've got all these devices to tell you, is it male or female, blood test, it's like, how is the man? Say she's got 3 men and she's in sexual relationships with all these men. When she becomes pregnant, how does she know whose that child is? So I think there's implications in the way that nature and the universe works. They also say that the sun is predominantly masculine and all the other planets are predominantly feminine, and they revolve around and work with the sun. These are just implications. That doesn't mean polygamy is the right thing. But I'm not completely against polyandry, but it's a bit questionable. It's a bit like...
I think definitely when you're talking about, childbirth, I think there needs to be boundaries there for sure. But when I have this conversation and kind of just what I observe when I kind of, read what people have written about it and the way they speak about it, it is very like male-centered. It's not much about... Male-centered, not very female-centered on one hand, was also not that focus on, like, it's not just about your sexual preferences and, the people who you're relating to. It's about your ability to provide. And I think that's not, like, provide kind of like a home and be able to spread your energy equally around even, rather it being women, and even polyandry side, be able to spread your energy equally amongst the people that you're relating with. But specifically because the polygamy side is more kind of like spoken about and accepted, I think there needs to be that conversation about, it's not just about who I want to relate to, like emotionally, sexually, whatever. It's all about like, how am I going to get myself to a place where I can provide equally, energetically, financially, whatever else for all of these women and families that I want to create. So I guess I'm interested in... Because I don't subscribe to monogamy. Like, I believe in a period of monogamy when you're kind of building your foundation with your partner. When you're having a child, like if I was in a non-monogamous situation, I would only be having sex with one of those partners, or unprotected sex with one of those partners, because of the whole, like, you can't deny who the mother is, but you can question who the father is if you're spreading your energy like that and allowing access like that. So I have my kind of, what I would want for my situation. Like, I'm not engaging in that kind of lifestyle at the moment. Like, my focus is on my daughter, and then I'm open to it, but I'm not looking for it right now.
Yeah, same.
But I do keep it in my mind a lot, and I have as many questions as possible with people kind of open to this and who are actively engaging in it or have engaged in it in a family setting, because I'm like, so... I guess there's a lot of internalization for me because monogamy is so prevalent. That's all we see. Just, how when the time comes around, because I would want it to be like a whole family unit. Like, I want my daughter to be as involved with all of my partners as her parents, once we get to that point in our relationship. So I guess there's a lot of internalization that I have to come over, a lot of kind of like breaking down of conditioning that I would have to overcome for that to feel comfortable. And I'm like, it's just a very open conversation, not even necessarily a question. It's just an exploration of how we teach that the fluidity of love and how it presents between like different kind of relating dynamics to our children. Because she's like, kids are going to see all over like mummy, daddy, one man, one woman.
Yeah.
How do we teach that, and how do we pass on and demonstrate how love can be spread like much easier than what we're actually taught in a lot of the world.
Yeah. And I think the lens we look at things through determines how we see it as well. So we're living in a time now where we've watched a million adverts, a million rom-coms, films, been to school with all different types of people. It's like history will show you that there was a time before all of this existed and we was living more in our instinctive, natural state. And I think there's a lot of implications as to how was we operating before all the external influence and all the, you know, all the colonization and the capitalistic.
It
how
feeds
was
into
we
capitalism,
operating?
this mother-father, heteronormative stuff.
And then,
it all feeds into it.
Polygamy, it's not just about romance and love. There's like economic implications. There's
Shared
like
finances, community.
It's like a man, like the power of a woman, the power of a woman really supporting what you're doing and having her dynamic, like through a clean lens. Oh, that's something that needs to be spoke about more, because women just feel like, no, what about me? Can I have 2 men? It's like, it's not just about competition. See, that's a competitive lens, like used to like, he's got that, so can I have it though?
Yeah.
Like, are you insecure?
But then it
Like,
roots back to the trauma, because like the insecurity that comes from both sides, but really like it's a really aggressive demonstration of insecurity when it is the woman wanting to relate with multiple people. Like it relates back to that trauma, back to that demasculation that men have internalized through generations, that makes it really hard for them to accept that. And I think that's why polygamy is much more popular or spoken about than polyandry, because and also relates to the demonization of the sexuality of women. Like there's so many intersections.
The last thing that I'll conclude my take anyway is just that having my daughter, it just confirmed to me that men and women, masculine and feminine, are not obliged to follow the same rule set. There's many of the same rule set we do follow and share, and there's totally different ones that benefit us differently. And I'm at a point where there's no denying that now. So I look at everything through that lens of, I always have to consider the masculine and feminine. And when you asked me last time on part 1, I explained that, the feminine grows through support and praise, and the masculine grows through competition and challenge. But we've all got the masculine and the feminine living in us. So when I was watching that back, I was thinking, why did I keep saying man and woman? I meant the masculine and the feminine. So they say if you challenge your woman, the masculine will just grow in her more and more, because challenge sharpens the masculine aspect within us. And love, support and praise grows the feminine aspects in us. So same like you want a man to be more feminine, he might be a bit too hard and not respecting of the more you praise him, the more his feminine side grows. Same as with the woman, the more you challenge her, the more her masculine side grows. If you don't like your woman not being too masculine, don't challenge her as much and praise her more, and you'll get more of the masculine out of her. But yeah, since having my daughter, that's become undeniable. So I look at everything through that lens, and that's where I'm at right now.
Powerful.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarity, because it refers back to me with the feeding which wolf, and then it comes back to the polarity of good and bad, and where we end up demonizing a side, and then that ends up being like someone being a winner above someone and someone being a loser. And like, it's not about that. It's about changing the dimension of the thought from being 2D again to another 3D visualization, and open up the space, open up the analogy and pour more into it. And what I realize is that there's more space for creative work, healing work, business type work, all before romance. But then the romance is like an infused thing anyway. I wouldn't even separate it. You know what I mean? Like, all of those things require, some of that essence of romance, because it's like how you alchemize and manifest, like whether it's a healing thing or a creative thing or a financial thing. And it's like you get, as a man, I receive different things from different women. Like, everyone can provide everything anyway, but at a given time, in a given space, like, a woman over here will be able to give me something that is in alignment with what I'm doing creatively, and it doesn't have to turn into something romantic. It can be preserved and retained, because we're in this space of maturity. And again, like, another woman over here could be like working on something that is like community-wise. And by me stepping in and giving attention and praising, she can develop more into the divine feminine that she needs to be that community provider.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like it's necessary to exercise the qualities of your poly, however you want to end it, Amma, Andre, whatever. Like, you know, it's important to flow and move, but also retain a significant other as well. You know, we're living in abundance, and by just choosing one set form is a limitation. We can carry multiple set forms. Yeah, a set form in each hand. A formula in each hand. Why have the same formula in both hands? Both hands have different skills and abilities and ranges. So why would you have the exact same thing in both hands?
Fixed. Yeah, it don't need to be fixed. No.
Because nothing can, like, if you fix something in life, I hope you're creating something, because if that's how you've chosen to live, then, boy, missed it, innit? Missed it, innit?
Yeah.
So I believe we need to take everything and, you know, find what works.
Yeah.
Don't cut anything out. The only way something is bad if we're looking at it in a 1D sense or 2D sense. Bring it into 3D, you're looking around and you're like, wait, there's no edges. You know what I mean? You're coming through, you're getting into more dimensions and volume of space.
Yes.
So then, like, as you get to the boundary, you just expand again. You know what I mean? All that growth that you did to push to get to that end, you know what I mean? It's going to allow us to expand further. But if we just keep it in this marginalized, minimalized, gentrified, whatever, crunchy fried, you know what I mean? it's not gonna be good, you know. And we all know from our own takes of it, and I believe that we're all stepping into the way of doing it right, and it is just affirmation that we all have it. We just need to orientate ourselves with it, you know, with awareness, right? So then it's like it's giving back to us, and we can give to it. If we create blockages, and illness.
Yeah, it's construct of the mind that manifests the blockages in your real path, isn't it? So I've noticed that, and I think it was definitely something I'd inherited, having this kind of living through fear and being scared of all the things that could go wrong, and, well, it might not work. But it might work. I'm now erring on the side of, what if it fucking does? I wouldn't know. I don't want to be on my deathbut not knowing that I didn't take a chance, you know. I want to know that I've lived life fully, wholly, and I've you know, pushed limits that I felt I grew up like with quite a limited belief system. And I think as I've gotten older, I've had to like rewire that to like take the lid off and understand that you can create these things, and it's like you said earlier, not living in fear, walking in purpose, holding love, and creating space, really, space and time for the things that are really important to you. So I love this episode. I feel that we've really covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate you all coming back in.
Thank you.
I know we've kind of gone round, but if anyone's got any final contributions, please make them now.
I just appreciate your input, everybody's input, man. Interesting. I look forward to watching back.
Me too. It's been a great dynamic. Thank you for coming
to our
back.
word
Yeah,
as well,
we
man.
did. I was like, we need to get that
It
part
needed
2
to
in.
happen.
It
Like,
really
watching
did.
it, I was like, I've got so many things to bounce off.
I know. It was
so
great.
much to build on,
Really beautiful episode.
So let's say thank you for bringing me onto the show.
You're welcome.
You know, expressing and sharing on the platform, this rising platform that you have going.
Yeah, we love to see it.
This is a springboard to so many things. Like, I feel and see that, like, this is the mouthpiece of the village.
Love that. Oh, stop.
No, definitely.
I love the way you put that. Thank you.
Definitely.
I appreciate it. I mean,
a fan out of me. I'm a fan of the show.
People have been saying you should get your own podcast going, aren't they? So
possibility. You might be the, inspiration.
There's been a few people that have come on and then done a podcast, and I'm like, I love that, because it's for me it's therapeutic. Like, obviously knowing other people's views of what you're sort of experiencing. and having the soundboard and understanding like even views that have come out today. I've always thought about like poly life, but not it's never really appealed to me in a way where I'd want to have the multiple men, really. It's appealed to me as like being one of the women.
Yeah.
But maybe that's because I saw it in Dubai. Happy women, married, living together.
So you see a lot of that in Dubai?
These two wives will be out together. Nannies with the kids.
There's so many different ways it presents. Like I think it gets a bad rep because of a lot of the way that it presents in our generation in particular. It's very kind of like chaotic and a bit unethical.
Right.
I don't really use the term polyamory. I use the term non-monogamy.
Okay.
I prefer that because it's much more open. There's loads of literature on it anyway. But yeah, it can present in many different ways. Like I'm queer, so I wouldn't want loads of men around me anyway. To be honest, it would be able to kind of it's a balance of energies for me rather than like a sexual thing. Yeah.
When you say queer, what does that mean?
I'm not heterosexual. Like I'm attracted to people. It doesn't matter what you identify as versus what genitals you were born with. Like I don't care. Like it's an energetic thing.
Okay.
And do you have to be attracted like romantically and sexually to kind of qualify as queer? What if you're like just attracted to different people on all other levels, but you're not attracted to them on a sexual or romantic
Physical
level? Does that still...
Queer is it's an umbrella term for anything that's not like heteronormative.
Right,
So there's it's like keeps expanding LGBTQIA+, like, and there's so many, each one of those letters has a spectrum to it itself. So there's lesbian, bisexual, what is it? I don't even remember. But there's the asexual spectrum. So some people are attracted like friendship-wise or romantically to each other, to people, but aren't attracted sexually to anybody.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
So there's so many shades and layers to it, and I think that's one of the main issues as a society. Like we learn this one term or one phrase or one way of living, and think, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Everything is so open, and there's so many layers.
3D.
And everything is a
3D.
It's
3D. Yeah.
I'm gonna
be using that one. Trust me.
It opens up like the visual spectrum of the thing. Because like when I breathe into the word queer, it's like, isn't that like, for example, you could be attracted to the same, you could be attracted to the opposite gender, but you say you don't want to have sex with them. Yeah. That could be queer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a quirk in the quality of being.
Yeah.
It's just like
not
not
straightforward,
not the norm. Like it's just not heteronormative.
Alternate,
So
alternate
covers all bases. But yeah, there are individual little pockets, and each one of those pockets has its own spectrum. So it's just
and is yours on a more romantic sexual level or just broad? More...
It's quite broad. It depends on the person who I meet.
Okay.
Like in an ideal world, I do want that family structure that would look heteronormative, like be in a partnership with another male, have kids together, but I would also want a female partner. But there could be even people outside of that dynamic who I have like a play partner, for example, which way it would be like sexual, or someone who I just enjoy spending time with. Like it's very open. And the most important thing about it is like the ethics of it. So having that always, like my primary partner or whoever I'm like committed to like that, we would need to have that open dialogue, and we would both have to be practicing like not judging, and like obviously things are going to come up, like jealous. People think to have multiple partners you got to like just not get jealous. Like that's not the case at all. Like jealousy is going to come up. It's such a massive opportunity for growth, as we were talking about on the last episode. Like being able to have these conversations. Conversations are going to be difficult. You're going to be feeling like just being allowed to feel whatever way you want to feel about whatever situation, and just being able to talk about it and work through it, and then maybe you get to a point where it's like, okay, this is not working for us. Let's see how it's all fluid.
Right.
It's all fluid.
That's the word.
Essentially, yeah.
I love that. I feel like on different episodes I've really got a massive understanding of people's sexuality, and it is varied, it is fluid, but we're born with this, like, well, as we grow up, we've got this very concrete idea of how things are supposed to look. And I know there's a whole new world, there's a whole other world out there, isn't there? Like,
The Ethical Slut is a good book to read. It's a good starting point, gives you a good overview, not exhaustive, but a good overview of different ways that non-monogamy or polyamory can play out, different terms that are used. There's loads of literature like Sex at Dawn. I've not read that, but I know a few people who are living this in this way, who've read that, who recommend it. There's a few, but yeah, the one that I've read and can vouch for as a starting point is The Ethical Slut.
okay. Well, you've got a few gems there. There's been books from Kayya, so I hope you find your way. Ethical Slut is probably the top of my list. But yeah, no, I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode as much as we've enjoyed making it. Thank you, and I'm excited to watch this back. I feel like I've
got a whole reading list.
Literally, yeah. I know which one's at the top. But yeah, again, thank you for joining me, Kayya Wrigley and Manuka. I'm your host, Neenagh Seemone. Please subscribe to the channel because I'm working very hard to give you videos now. So subscribe.
5 stars.
Look out for the content. All right. Thank you.
you.
Bye.